Having a thoughtful and intentional employee onboarding strategy can make a world of difference in the success and retention of your employees. However, sometimes it's easier said than done, especially when it comes to onboarding remote employees. I'm Skye, a staff writer with business.com, and today I'm joined by Nettie Nitzberg, the Chief Learning Officer and co-founder of Saterman Connect, to discuss the biggest challenges and solutions to remote onboarding. To give our viewers just a little bit of background, can you please explain why strategic employee onboarding is so important for small businesses?
Yeah, especially with the pandemic over the last year and a half, companies are really needing to really think about how they're bringing on new employees. There is a really great statistic out there that says great employee onboarding can improve employee engagement by 82%. So, if you are not really thinking about how are you going to create this experience, an experience that really starts from the talent acquisition process and then turns over to HR to bring somebody on board, you could be really missing the boat. There's another statistic out there that says within 45 days from a bad onboarding experience, new employees leave the company. I mean, all that time that you spent recruiting, all that time that you have had interviews with that person, to have somebody leave, even when the onboarding period typically, which is 90 days, isn't even over, something's gone wrong. There has really been a disconnect. So companies just really need to take that into consideration is how are we connecting with employees? How are we engaging them? What are we telling them? Making sure that the process is seamless, that recruiters are getting back to the employees. I know there's many instances where folks are ghosted. They've been going through the interview process and they just don't hear back from a recruiter. So then what does that say about the company? So be strategic, really think about the process, make sure all your ducks are in order and don't let anything drop through the cracks. Ensure that, folks are onboarded in a manner that just really helps them engage with the organization and the culture.
And I guess it's no surprise that over the past year, especially, there's been a lot of remote employee onboarding.
Yes, absolutely.
What are kind of the biggest challenges that employers and HR managers and recruiters are facing with remote employee onboarding specifically?
So first of all, it was taking on-site onboarding and how do you make it remote? How do you connect to these new hires that could be across the country, across the world, but how do you really create that connection? And I think that's where many companies have had challenges is that, we'll just get on Zoom and we'll just tell everybody about these are the benefits, this is the paperwork you have to do. We're going to have people come in on the Zoom and talk to you. And they're missing the boat there because it's not engaging. It's not interactive. And we all know we all have Zoom fatigue. And the last thing you want to do is listen to the dog and pony show of different people coming in from different departments. So companies really need to put themselves in the new hire seat and really think about, how can I do this in smaller increments? How can I make those touch points and connections outside of a Zoom call or outside of a Teams call and really help the employee feel that they are a part of the organization, even though they're not touching and feeling or standing around the water cooler having these conversations.
Great. And I think you had kind of touched on it, but that leads perfectly into what I was going to ask next, which is what are kind of some actionable steps that employers can take to solve these challenges of remote onboarding?
I think number one is to cut down a very long onboarding process into small widgets of information and think of onboarding as the full 90 days, which typically onboarding is. But the first couple weeks are that acclimation to the company culture, that opportunity for managers to set up interviews with key folks that are key stakeholders that new hires need to meet. Have coffee with the employee and bring the team along, get to know that person on a more personal level. We've all gone into people's houses over the last 18 months and really gotten to know who they are, who their animals are, who their kids are, what their office looks like, and make that part of the onboarding process. Just really, really get to know who's there. And then think about what can you share in a document or a small video that could be on a Workday site, that could sit on, your server, that has information that doesn't really need to be provided via a Zoom call. Create opportunities throughout the first month for networking. Like we run a thing called the Ripple Connection event. It is a networking event that's done in an hour. It's so much fun. We connect people in breakouts. They talk about interesting questions, do some storytelling. And it's a fun opportunity to do not only with new hires, but managers or team members in that organization who are coming together. And again, be planful. Think about how much somebody can take in at a time and make sure that's spread out over the schedule. And most of all, make sure the hiring manager is fully involved in the process. That is where the connection to the organization is really going to be, and tether that hiring manager to the person, and perhaps add a transition buddy or somebody who can touch base that's outside of the management or even the team to help acclimate to the company.
And in addition to all of those wonderful things for employee onboarding, what other things can employers and HR managers do throughout the employee lifecycle to improve that? For example, pre-boarding, post-boarding, other things of that nature.
Yeah, so we love to talk about pre-boarding. We have a trademark process called the onboarding that really takes into consideration what's happening during that talent acquisition process. How is the company out there on social media? What's happening with recruiters? How are you bringing people into the mix? And then, as you mentioned, post-boarding is what are you creating as growth and development opportunities as you bring somebody on board, and think about their 30, 60, 90-day plan, what trainings they need to have. But there's also opportunities as well for recognition and rewards. That just makes somebody feel like they're just part of an organization. And matter of fact, we have a client who's been at work because they're a manufacturing company throughout the pandemic. And it's been really awesome at their town meetings to say thank you to those that are coming in, during this time and working, when other people are working remotely from home. So just like some of those things are just really important to keep employees engaged and keep employees motivated, and to say thank you for all the hard work that you've done.
Awesome. Well, that was all that I had for you today. Did you have any final words of wisdom or any other pieces of advice for small business owners during the remote onboarding process?
I guess the one thing that I also want to mention is that, right now sourcing talent has really, really been difficult. But I think the wide berth of being able to be remote, and we've done it this year, we've been productive, and looking at talent outside of your region or your state and finding some really, really good employees that, have specific skills that you can bring on and you can do it successfully. And, that the ability to stay connected through some of the things that we talked about can be a real turning point for a small business who, wants to bring in help that talent that they just can't find around the local area.
Well, thank you, Nettie, so much for joining us today. That's all that we had.
Thank you, Skye. Really appreciate it.